The Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Luke. When the days for Jesus being taken up were fulfilled, he resolutely determined to journey to Jerusalem, and he sent messengers ahead of him. On the way they entered a Samaritan village to prepare for his reception there, but they would not welcome him, because the destination of his journey was Jerusalem. When the disciples James and John saw this, they asked, "Lord, do you want us to call down fire from heaven to consume them?" Jesus turned and rebuked them, and they journeyed to another village. As they were proceeding on their journey, someone said to him, "I will follow you wherever you go." Jesus answered him, "Foxes have dens and birds of the sky have nests, but the Son of Man has nowhere to rest his head." And to another he said, "Follow me." But he replied, "Lord, let me go first and bury my father." But he answered him, "Let the dead bury their dead, but you go and proclaim the kingdom of God." And another said, "I will follow you, Lord, but first let me say farewell to my family at home." To him Jesus said, "No one who sets a hand to the plow and looks to what was left behind is fit for the kingdom of God." The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ.
This is the time of year for many different things, certainly vacations, and soon I'll be taking one myself as I'll be driving across the grand old USA all the way to San Diego and back. So I'm looking forward to that. I love baseball, what can I say? I also know it's a time for weddings, and I just did a wedding for a friend of mine up in the Rochester area at Sacred Heart Cathedral yesterday morning. It was a beautiful time. And certainly we gather for many family picnics and festivals and concerts and the like. But it's also a time for graduations. And perhaps you know of someone who graduated recently from high school or college. And we cheer these graduates on to whatever the next chapter of their life is, whether it's going to college or getting a job, maybe entering the military. And I think it's good to celebrate what their hard work has achieved, and all the wonderful possibilities that their future holds. Yet it's also time to reminisce about how far these graduates have come, of all that they've been through to get to this important point in their life. We may think of their many successes and failures, their joys and struggles along the way. We all have them. And I know that many parents get emotional when they see how much their graduating children have grown up. I'm reminded about the high school days of a certain individual that I learned about when I visited a special museum in his honor. It's in Santa Rosa, California, while I was taking a several-month sabbatical in the Oakland area back in 2010. And it shows that the road to success is not always predictable or easy to travel on, which graduates come to realize very quickly. And yet, if we believe in what we're capable of doing according to God's plans, we can go very far in life, as this man's story shows. This museum is dedicated to a man who, as a boy, flunked every subject in the 8th grade and had to repeat that grade. In high school, he flunked algebra in 9th grade, Latin and English in 10th grade, and physics in 11th grade. He got a 0 in that class. And he said that he never thought of asking a girl for a date, for he was confident the answer would be no. And he made the golf team in high school, but lost his only important match, then proceeded to lose the consolation round as well. And all the cartoons that he drew for his graduation annual book were totally ignored. And yet, he thanked God that a couple of teachers and his mother recognized the promising talent that he had and encouraged him to keep on trying to use it. And if it hadn't been for their encouragement and love, the world may have never come to know a character that this young man later created in his life. A character who is the epitome of the lovable loser who never seems to give up. That character is Charlie Brown, who along with the characters Snoopy and Linus and Lucy and the others made Charles Schulz one of the most famous, wealthy, beloved comic strip artists of all time. And since 1950, his Peanuts characters have given the world much joy and hope. And I can certainly attest to that. When I was growing up, I had a lot of the Peanuts books. Now maybe Charles Schulz was aware of today's specific passage from Luke, considering that he was a very devout Christian and Sunday school teacher at a Protestant church he belonged to for many years in Minneapolis, Minnesota. And perhaps he was inspired by this particular passage in which Jesus was resolutely determined to journey to Jerusalem. Now that means that Jesus was extremely focused on what he knew he had to do. His mission in life, his calling to fulfill, if you will. He knew precisely what his Heavenly Father wanted him to do. To go to Jerusalem to do what? To suffer, to die, and to rise again. All for the purpose of saving the world. Nothing was going to sidetrack him from achieving that goal. Not rejection from other people, as it says here in this gospel. Not temptations. Not worldly pleasures. Nothing. And you know, in this gospel, Jesus sounds a bit insensitive in what he tells the last two potential disciples near the end of the passage here. They make very reasonable requests. They say they'll follow Jesus, but one adds this: Lord, let me go first and bury my father. And then the other adds, well, I'll follow you, but first let me say farewell to my family at home. Well, who could blame them for wanting to do such loving things, right? We would do that. And yet, we may be missing the several deeper meanings for why Jesus tells them not to do these things. Here we are with these points. It's not that Jesus didn't care about burying loved ones or taking care of family needs. He obviously did care. Yet one of the main points here that Jesus is making is that nothing can be more important than following him. Not your spouse, not your children, not your best friends, not your career, personal interests, or friendships. Nothing. Nothing created in this world can be of greater importance than God the Creator. And God tells us that in the first commandment, doesn't he? He says, I am the Lord your God, don't have any other gods in front of me. We can make other things and people our gods. If we're truly to follow Jesus every single day of our life, we have to place Jesus at the front of all our decision-making as to whether or not something is right or wrong to do, or how we choose to deal with each person we meet. And without having Jesus be our main guide in those things, we can easily get sidetracked or lost altogether. And it takes resolute determination on our part to stick with Jesus, who is our way, our truth, and our life, by obeying his commandments. This means relying more on the strength and gifts that God has given us so that we can stay close to him. That's why we have the sacraments of the church we're celebrating right now. Here's a second, deeper meaning in this passage. Once we have firmly decided to follow Jesus and do things his way, then we shouldn't go back to our former, flawed, less fulfilling way of life. If, for example, we've overcome a bad habit, then we have to rely on Jesus not to go back to that old bad habit. If we firmly decided to be more like Jesus and loving and treating everybody with respect and care better than we did in the past, then we shouldn't go back to how we used to treat them. Don't go backwards. And here's the third and final lesson that's kind of hidden under the surface in this gospel scene. How many times have we created excuses for not doing what Jesus asks of us? How often do we make things more important than they really are? For example, think of all the excuses many people make for not coming to Mass. Oh, I've got to take my child to soccer that day. Oh, I've got to cut the lawn. Oh, I'm going to sleep in, I'm too tired. Oh, I've got company coming over, so much to do around the house. On and on and on. Doesn't God deserve our time? He made us. Also, think of the excuses people use for not forgiving a person. Do you know what he or she did to me? That's unforgivable. Really? It's not what Jesus teaches. Doesn't Jesus readily forgive others who ask for forgiveness? And even offer forgiveness to those who are not totally sorry for what they did? Isn't that what he said on the cross? Father, forgive them. They don't know what they're doing. If he can do it, we can do it. Because Jesus shares the power with us to do so. And we also may use excuses for not giving more to the poor or to the needy. Just keep things for ourselves, for our pleasures. Or maybe we're holding back and not showing enough love to other certain individuals. Oh, I don't like him or her. He or she's annoying to me, so I'll treat her coldly by avoiding eye contact or gossiping about the person or doing other mean things. Is that following Jesus? Here's a little something I shared recently at a wedding I did. Years ago, TV host Johnny Carson had a couple of special guests on his Tonight Show who were celebrating 75 years of marriage. They were both in their late 90s. And he asked this couple what their secret to success in marriage was. And the husband spoke up and said that every morning he woke up, he made an active choice that no matter what would happen during the course of the day, he would show love to his wife. He would choose to be patient, devoted, kind, helpful, and encouraging, which all flow from love. And this husband was certainly not perfect in always being that way, but at least he made a conscious decision to have that as a major goal in his life. And thus he and his wife and others around him were much better off because he made resolute determination to follow Jesus. God knows we all stray at times. We all have sins in the past. We all have failures we're not proud of. We've all made bad judgments at times. And not all of our plans have worked out the way that we would have preferred. And yet, like Charles Schulz showed us, we have to rise above such failures and learn from them with a new, hopeful outlook and committed determination to give our very best in the future. And what makes the difference is how motivated we are to fulfill what Jesus asks of us. And not only are we to motivate and encourage one another in the process, but motivate ourselves too. That's important. But this also begs this question. How open are we in trying to do things better in our life? Are we willing to hear from other people how we can improve in doing something? Or do we get our defenses up, we're afraid of being criticized, then we get angry or feel insulted when they do that? You know, I've learned more from my mistakes in life than I have from my successes, I can tell you that much. And of course, not everything that people suggest is correct or usable, but we should at least consider the possibility and be thankful that someone may care enough about us to make a comment or suggestion like that. And perhaps God is using such people to get our attention on how something needs to be changed in our lives. You know, obviously it's important in how we present these suggestions too, so we have to be careful how we suggest things in a thoughtful, gentle way, because that's the way of Jesus. And that is all part of this resolute determination he's talking about, so that we can be a better, more loving disciple of Jesus. And that means helping one another and being willing to grow. So in summation, what should be our number one goal in life? Following Jesus, heading for heaven. Everything we say and do should point to that number one goal. And as Christ's disciples, we are to help light people's way through our own shining examples, to encourage and inspire them. If you love someone, tell them often. When people do good things for you, thank them often. If someone has a gift or a talent, point it out, for the person may not even see it in him or herself. And that builds confidence in a person, just like it did for Charles Schultz. We should do such things again and again. Jesus gave his whole life out of love for us, and now he's encouraging us in this Eucharist to do the same. May the power he shares with us in this Eucharist help us to become more aware of what God knows that we can be in this life, as we can hopefully rejoice in the next life. And you know what? Real success in life can be measured in just one word: heaven. Now that's graduation.